let's begin with this. President Biden now making the long-awaited announcement that he will run for re-election in 2024. It comes as the president is facing very disappointing polling, potentially damaging investigations and mounting questions about his age. He is the oldest man to ever run for the White House in our nation. The president kicked off his campaign on video today, confirming that Vice President Kamala Harris will return as his running mate. Was that a thing? Was that a mystery? The news comes exactly 4 years to the date after Joe Biden announced his candidacy for the 2020 election. And this time, he says he's running with a new promise to finish the job.
Around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what health care decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love, all while making it more difficult for you to be able to vote. When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America. Let's finish this job. I know we can. Because this is the United States of America. There's nothing, simply nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
Well, with the way that corporations are laying off, let's help some people get a job.
Right.
Forget about the one he's trying to finish. So, Kim, the polling, I know, really stands out to you today.
Yes, I mean, the polls don't lie. This is the party that's all about scientific responsibility. And so 70% of the nation does not want him, or the Dems don't want him to. I think we have to look to that and realize that numbers don't lie.
Yeah, and we're going to put them up on the screen to support you with that. And you're absolutely right. 70%, it's hard to get 70% of people to agree on anything.
Exactly.
So what does this tell you just in terms of how people are thinking? Because sometimes what that can mean is that people just won't vote.
True. I think what happened, Harris, is that when I saw the video, I got very disappointed because I felt what happened was he wanted to create more divisiveness. And I think that's the last thing that we need right now. We need to find a middle ground. And this is supposed to be the party of inclusivity, of bringing everybody together. And it's talking about, let's talk about the extremists on this end. And I think that is so destructive to the fabric of America right now.
Yeah, you know, Kevin, when I first watched this ad this morning, I thought something similar to what Kim is saying. I said the unity, the dripping vocabulary of unity is gone. It's not there at all. It is, and I called it last hour, basically an attack ad.
Yeah, Harris, I mean, I think that he's taking a play from the midterms where he really framed it as a choice election between some of the extremism that we're seeing on the right and the president.
Cut in just 1 second.
Yeah.
The difference for me and for voters for the midterms, though, was that he wasn't actually the man they were voting for. So no matter what was going on, they may have liked what he said. They liked him going, you know, attack dog, whatever. They were voting for the person in their district. Now he's the attack dog you're going to get. Do you think that makes people feel calm when they can't afford bread?
I mean, we'll see 18 months from now. But listen, I think he has to frame it as I said before, as this choice election because of some of the difficulties that you mentioned. But I think the president really relishes being an underdog. You had Newt Gingrich, the former speaker, on your show just earlier on The Focus. And he had that op-ed where he said, you know, Republicans, take heed. Don't underestimate Joe Biden. We saw polls going into Iowa, polls going into New Hampshire. He came back and won South Carolina overwhelmingly and then ran the table. So he likes to be in that underdog position. He certainly is right now with the reelect.
And I want to get this in there. NBC polling of those who said no, they were asked, well, how does his age factor in? So you won't vote for him, but is this the reason why? 48% of them said it's a major reason why. 21% minor, 29, not really a reason. And you mentioned Newt Gingrich. Do we have that ready? Let's go straight to him. He was on Focus with me last hour talking about Biden's 2024 campaign.
I think his view is he is the president. He thinks he can beat Trump, and he thinks that nobody can beat him for the nomination. And he's probably right. I can't imagine anyone defeating Biden for the Democratic nomination. So whether or not the country likes it, this is what they've got. This is a guy who has tried to coerce the country on everything from transgender issues to climate issues to the border. This is a guy who, frankly, has run a pretty incompetent administration, which is why most Americans think America is in decline, and most Americans think that we need a different approach.
Republicans are not going to go quietly into the night.
No, they're not. I interviewed Newt Gingrich 2 weeks ago, and one of the things he and I talked about is that the unpopularity of Joe Biden does not necessarily translate into victory for Republicans. Didn't in the midterms, as we saw. So what do Republicans do with what we saw today? Two things. Biden flipped freedom on its head. Typically a Republican term that we throw out there, he flipped it on its head. Our response as a party needs to be, are you really free if you can't walk down the streets of Chicago without fear of being assaulted? Are you really free if your kid was locked out of their school for 2 years and has irreparable learning damage? Are you really free if you go to the grocery store and you're saddled with inflation? That's number one. Number two, it's very easy to watch that ad. You see dark, doom, gloom, MAGA, ultra MAGA Republicans is a theme of Biden. It's easy to laugh that off, and we kind of did that as a party for the midterms. Can't laugh that off. It worked in the midterms. So what do Republicans need to do? They need to flip the extremity on its head and put it right back at Biden while simultaneously proving that ad wrong by being the party of optimism, hope, a vision for the future. And so far, I like the response today from Trump put out a response. He said, look, for 24 months, you've not gotten a pay raise. Real median income has gone down in this country. Tim Scott out with another great response saying this president's targeting religious liberties, leaving the border open, wasting trillions of dollars we don't have. That kind of choice, to Kim's point, choice and unifying vision needs to be the unilateral voice of the Republican Party.
So
I hope the Republicans don't listen to that, because that's great advice.
Well, I've got even more coming from Emily right now, because Emily's special gift, one of her many, is a closing argument. Right. So what I heard Newt Gingrich also say last hour is that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has an ability to make that closing argument if he can get the debt ceiling deal done with the president. And he said he's going to have a lot of momentum coming out of a vote out of the House. He's only 4 or 5 short. Newt Gingrich said, oh, I could get those in 15 minutes. Well, we know you're brilliant. But so, talk to me about the closing argument for Republicans. I mean, one has to be being able to govern. So you've got this debt ceiling here.
Absolutely. And to further your point, Kayleigh, it's the specificity. So respectfully, Kevin, when you talk about the underdog of President Biden, I don't see him as an underdog. In fact, he's enjoyed all the elite privileges of serving in the swamp and reigning over the swamp for 50 years. The referendum on his performance, the critical, frank, stark assessment on his performance, that shows 70% of Democrats don't want him to run again. That shows the majority of Americans feel they are in a worse place, that they do not trust him economically, in foreign policy, and etc. It has nothing to do with him being an underdog. It has to do with his failure to perform. I think, an underdog is someone that doesn't have notoriety, popularity, name recognition. This president has everything, and he is still failing. And when exactly, an apologist media. So when I saw that campaign ad today, I was immediately taken back. I time traveled back, and I thought to myself, what fatigue, what exhaustion on my part to see the same campaign ad. I literally was like, wait, is this a repeat, or was this from this year? And so for him to play that same tired note, the separation, the anti-MAGA, the anti-XYZ, Americans are far more evolved than that. We need the specificity. So not only is it incumbent upon the GOP to outline exactly here's how and why you are worse off. You know you are, American people. We all know we're worse off at the bank, at church, at schools, at the kitchen table, grocery store. We know why we're worse off. So it's incumbent upon the GOP to harness that and to combat this tired repetition ad, the divisiveness, the tribalism, and say, here's XYZ and here's the candidate that's going to deliver.
Case closed.
Wow. We just got to figure out what that candidate is.
18 months to go.
Yeah, true.